What is going on, everybody? Chris Pearson here, and as always with you. This is now the 6th edition, 6th projection. Just now, printed it off right before, hot off the press. Just got it done. Well, not really hot, but close enough. Just now printed it. Just now got everything finalized. So this is your home for it. This is the Tracking the Madness series. We are now really now getting down into the, pun intended, nitty-gritty. We are really, all those sheets the committee has in front of them. They're probably poring over them right now. And they're watching hours, hours upon hours upon hours upon hours of college basketball, which I am too. But so it's wild. This final week before Selection Sunday, you realize now we're just 4 days away. We're 4 days away from the big day. This week is really the crunch week where all the major conferences now, a lot of the major conferences today start their conference tournaments. I know the ACC does. The Big 12, I think, does today. So the SEC might either today or tomorrow. Big 10 starts tomorrow. So a lot of these leagues now are really getting into it. And a lot of automatic bids have been handed out so far. And I tell you what, we're going to see a lot of teams ending up in the NIT because then they showed the graphic last night. 8, count them, 8 number 1 seeds in the conference tournaments have gone down before winning the whole thing, going down early. So that means we've seen a lot of surprising teams that have clinched automatic bids, like Eastern Kentucky out of the Ohio Valley beating top seed Belmont, top seed Davidson falling early in the SoCon after they ran the table most of the year. And in the end, Wofford won the Southern title. Milwaukee out of the Horizon League, Green Bay, who dominated that league all season, lost to Milwaukee in the semifinal. High Point losing in the Big South early on, and in the end, Coastal Carolina wins the Big South. So a lot, just number 1 teams falling left and right that end up going to the NIT as a result because all these surprising wins. Robert Morris out of the Northeast was the number 1 seed. They got beat by Mount St. Mary's, who's going to take a 16-16 record in the tourney. I guarantee you they're going to be in the first 4 in Dayton. So just a lot of surprises that we have seen so far. We can only imagine if there are all these surprises in these so-called mid-major conferences, what's going to happen in the major ones. So a lot to dissect, a lot to look at. Now, granted, with the fact that the major ones don't even started yet, a lot really hasn't changed along the bubble lines. So there's a lot to so really, a lot hasn't changed with my last 4 in, first 4 out, that kind of thing. Those will change really as the weeks go on, and then by my final bracket projection on Saturday, I think a lot will change, and then a lot more will be finalized and set in stone before Selection Sunday rolls around. So just to give you guys a refresh, though, of how my bubble stacks up right now, I have 2 teams right now. I could probably include a third in this mix. Based on where they are on the cut line, maybe even a 4th. If I had to pick right now, like my last 4 teams safe, it'd probably be Pitt, Tennessee, and I would say probably lump in St. Joe's and BYU in that mix. Now, personally, I think St. Joe's and BYU are the safer of those 4. I think they're actually in pretty good positions based on their resumes, based on what they've done. BYU made it to the final of the West Coast Conference Tournament, and they gave Gonzaga a pretty good fight last night. They were down early, then they started making a comeback, and then they lost one of their really good players to a really bad knee injury, it looked like, but they still continued to fight and only ended up losing by 11. I think BYU, because of the fact they reached the final, and because, again, they still have some really solid wins out of conference, I think they'll be okay for the tourney. They'll probably be on that 10-11, maybe more likely 11 cut line, but I think they're going to be all right. Same with St. Joe's. I think I see St. Joe's in the same position, either a 10 or an 11. The loss to LaSalle recently did not really help their at-large cause, but I think, again, the fact that they've built up so many good wins, I think they'll be okay. Now, so the 2 teams I think that really need to really help themselves come to conference tournaments are Tennessee and Pitt. Tennessee, the blowout win over Missouri, that was huge for them, beating them big time, that 72-45. The Virginia win, but do you remember this Tennessee beat Virginia, who later on went on to win the ACC by 35 points. That is so impressive. That looks so much better now. But I think the Vols still need to win at least a couple games in the SEC tournament and not suffer that sub 100 loss. And remember, Tennessee still got swept by a Texas A&M team that has really underachieved this year. So I really think that Tennessee, if they could win at least 1 or 2 games, I think they'll be all right. Same goes for Pitt. You know, and again, I mentioned it on here. I thought that Pitt couldn't miss, but they stumbled. They lost to a couple bubble teams. They lost to Florida State and they lost to NC State. So, but I think for now they're still, you know, they're on the cliff, but they're kind of like attached to it. Their hands barely holding on to it. Now, they do have a top 50 win that came against Stanford, which I think Stanford's going to be safely in the tournament too. But the good thing about Pitt's profile, no bad losses to drag it down. So that's really huge for them. I think they're safe for now, but they would really have to, again, at least get a couple wins in the ACC tourney. If they do have that early exit, that hand that's hanging on the cliff is really going to be sweating in 4 days. So that's where I have the safe teams right now. Last 4 in, again, Minnesota. You know, a lot of people I think really don't share my positive stance on Minnesota, and I'm kind of confused as to why. You know, a lot of people have them among their either first 4 out of the field or even the next 4 out, which I think is really disrespectful. Top 10 schedule. They have the 7th best strength of schedule. They've knocked off 3 surefire tournament teams, including the Wisconsin Badgers. You know, they avoided the resume crusher, and they beat Penn State the last finale game. Now, obviously, they got to play Penn State again in the first round of the upcoming Big Ten tournament. But to me, there's nothing really glaring wrong with the profile. You know, and they play in the strongest RPI conference in the Big Ten, so that should buoy things a little bit. You know, I'm going to give Minnesota its dap. To me, you know, albeit barely, I think they still are a returning team, but if they do lose to Penn State in that first round, obviously, then I think they'd be on their way out. I think, you know, if they beat Penn State and then they have to play Wisconsin again, if they win at least those 2 games, I think Minnesota is in a very, very good position. So I'm going to give Minnesota its credit. I think they look strong to me right now. A lot of people don't agree with me on that, but and again, and we got you guys and I, the people that have commented on my video, have talked about a lot of teams. Varying on that cut line and back and forth and seeing your guys' projections. And again, I love that from you guys and sharing the video and spreading the word. So thank you guys again on that as well. But, you know, what's your take on Minnesota? Let me know what you guys think, because I'm kind of confused on this one. I think that Minnesota deserves its dap, but I don't know. I could also be very well off base. And so just, you know, I like Minnesota. I do. Xavier, you know, we've talked on here. We've delved into Xavier's squirrely resume up and down the board. You know, they've been really, for me, they've been hovering around the safe line and the last 4 cut line for the last few weeks. And because of that inconsistency, they're very much still in this position. You know, it's great. You got strong victories over, again, Cincinnati, Creighton, fellow safe team Tennessee, but again, the fact that they got swept by Seton Hall and they lost to a USC team that is really on the rebuild, very tough to figure out. But I think for now they're right where they need to be. I think, again, the pros outweigh the cons in Xavier situation. They're on the right side for now. As long as they win a couple games in the Big East tourney, I think they'll be okay. Dayton, I've mentioned on here multiple times, and I just talked again to a commenter about how much I love Dayton's profile. I mean, you think about it. The Flyers have just flown up the bubble ladder of late. You know, doesn't to me have a glaring negative in the numbers. RPI of 39, a decent strength of schedule of 56, 4 top 50 victories, 9-6 against the top 100, 9-1 in their last 10 games. They also have a winning road record. They're 6-4 in those true road games. You beat a conference champion in Gonzaga. You beat your conference leader in St. Louis. I mean, that is huge now for the Dayton Flyers. Now, again, there are those strange losses that are kind of weighing things down a bit. They lost to Illinois State. They lost to that same USC team and a perennial bubble killer in Rhode Island. But again, I just think in this case there's so many pros to Dayton's profile that it outweighs those cons. So as long as they keep winning, and again they accrue a couple good wins in the A10 tourney, I I can't imagine Dayton missing this field. I think really with the way they've played of late, Dayton's looking really solid. And Nebraska. I mean, and again, I've also said on here for weeks how impressed I've been with Nebraska and how I said they were maybe a win or two away from being on the right side of the bubble. Well, welcome. They got it. You know, they were stuck in my first four out for weeks on end, but finally they got the over-the-hump victory they needed, knocking off Wisconsin. And yes, and while it was at home, where Nebraska has been successful, you can't ignore the quality of the win. You know, needed, got it done, and that's what matters at the end of the day. And again, Tim Miles has just done an amazing job turning around this program. Now they got the 4 seed, the first round bye in the tournament, the Big Ten tournament, I should say. And as you know, in my opinion, as long as they win their first game against either Ohio State, who they've already beaten once, or avoid the sweep against Purdue, I think they're going to be golden. You get to 20 wins, I think that's a threshold. But in this case, with their profile, it's too good to overlook. I think Nebraska's in a really good position right now. My first 4 out, Arkansas. And this one I've been so debating with. I would love to keep Arkansas on the right side. I really would. But it is so hard to do with Arkansas when A, like in Nebraska, other teams are doing so well they leapfrog you, and B, you really don't play, your regular season's over, and you don't play during that same time frame. So, you know, it's kind of like the BCS. Teams leapfrog each other when they don't play. So it's kind of that same vein. And it doesn't really help that Arkansas really didn't have a crystal clear profile to their name. The numbers are still really, really low. The 62 RPI, the ugly 84 of strength of schedule. They got destroyed by Alabama on the road in their final regular season game. So that shows you what kind of a homer team they are, because they're 3-6 in true road games. You know, now obviously the sweep of Kentucky, that's huge. Not many teams have that. And the win over SMU, looking better all the time. But for me, to really have any feeling of true safety, I think Arkansas still needs some good wins in the SEC tourney. Then the numbers can go up a little bit and you know, get themselves in a better position. So obviously they might need some help from above them, but I think for now Arkansas certainly is nearly there, but not quite there. Missouri, you know, when you get destroyed by your fellow bubbler in Tennessee, you know, you got to pay the penalty. And that's why Missouri now find themselves on the outs. And I had them safe for a long time. I thought that Missouri, to me, was in a really good position regards to their profile, but after seeing that performance, got to relegate them down. Now, they did split with Tennessee, so they beat them at least one time, but that didn't really mean too much now. They have a good win over UCLA, but they also had some losses that kind of canceled those wins out. Lost to Bama, lost to Vanderbilt. So this is an even kind of vanilla resume. And usually in the NCAA tourney, the committee doesn't like vanilla. Oh, you know, we got all these ice creams here. Oh my gosh, look at this. Look at this chocolate. Look at this strawberry. Look at the mint chocolate chip over here. Ugh, vanilla. Ugh. No, don't give us any of that. Yes, they don't like, you know, vanilla doesn't fly when it comes to the tournament. But, you know, this year with the bubble the way it is, Missouri goes on a run, everyone else above them makes a stumble or two, who knows what can happen. So Missouri, certainly not out of the discussion. Cal, you know, Cal, another team that I whiffed on. You know, I thought that Cal looked really, really safe. You know, they had 4 top 50 victories. They had a strong strength of schedule. But again, they whiffed at the wrong time. They went on a losing streak. Others went ahead of them. You know, it was like inevitable for them to take a tumble. Now, Cal, I would say, again, at least they're in a better position than some other teams. You know, but the problem is they didn't beat anybody outside their own conference. You know, all their major wins, all those top 50 wins came in their own league, the Pac-12. So other teams have better non-conference wins than they do. So, you know, Cal's got to get a couple strong wins in the Pac-12 tourney, even though, you know, they at least warrant a better look, you know. So they're not going to have the non-conference wins other teams have, but they still got to make a run here in their own tournament to really warrant a serious look from the committee. And then Georgetown. Georgetown, last team on my first 4 out list. You know, the Hoyas just can't win for losing. You know, they've played a brutal schedule, top 10 in the country, decent RPI number, and they with that win over Creighton of recently, they have 5 5 wins against the top 50. But as Brett Michaels of Poison once saying, every rose has its thorn, or thorns in this case. The Hoyas have a few, including that dreaded Seton Hall sweep that also plagues the Xavier Musketeers. Now, normal year, team 5 top 50 wins, put them in the field. But when your record's only 2 games above 500 at 17-13, and you've got those losses dragging you down, you need wins and a lot of help to make some noise. Georgetown, we hear you. You're just very faint right now. You're just kind of out in the distance. You're like, what? What? Can't hear you. What? Come a little closer. Get some victories. Next 4 out, Florida State. Again, it's for Florida State. It's never really good to hit the skids come March, and that's exactly what happened to Florida State. 2 weeks ago, maybe it looked like a tourney team, but now one that's got to make a serious run in the ACC tournament to really warrant any strong looks. Now, granted, 2 good wins against 2 solid Atlantic 10 teams. VCU, great win. Massachusetts, good. But the Pitt win, that's kind of lost some of its luster now. And losing to Miami earlier in the year certainly didn't help matters either. Now, had they beaten Syracuse last week, who was also in a slump of their own, would have gotten Florida State probably off this spot and moved up. But they didn't. They're still here. And they need some wins and some help. Excuse me. I have to apologize again for the yawning. I got woken up this morning. Yesterday I was out of town yesterday for most of the day. This morning, on Wednesday morning, I got woken up at 6 a.m. by another winter blast. Knocked my power out briefly for 25 minutes. So I've been awake since then. So forgive me if I'm a little bit sleepy. Providence. Another tough team to figure out when it comes to Providence. But to me, they're more Missouri than Xavier, that vanilla. Nothing too flashy or other quality wins, although beating Creighton is a plus. That Xavier win, though, kind of looks less and less impressive by the day. Now, a sweep last week, that would have been huge for the Friars. But Dougie McBuckets and his squad got their revenge. Oh, and by the way, can you take a guess who's dragging Providence's profile down? No. You don't need even 3 guesses. Yep, the curse of the Seton Hall Pirates strikes here too. And like Rhode Island, they've just been bubble killers this year. It would really serve Providence well to get a few big wins in the tourney. Because this profile to me, covered in vanilla with the wafers. Just completely covered. St. John's, I had to laugh. And, of course, you guys saw the rant. Several people had St. John's in their first 4 out or even their last 4 in lists. I mean, people, were you serious? Do you not look at a team's complete body of work? 1 top 50 win, although it's Creighton, which is great, but they had 7 other chances to get good wins. Lost them all. Plus, again, they lost to the likes of Penn State and DePaul. You're telling me the team that lost to DePaul is a tourney team? No. Nowhere near the cut line. Win some games in the A10 tourney first. Why do I keep saying A10? St. John's is Big East. I keep confusing the A10 and the Big East because of all the conference realignment switch. So many teams either left the A10 to the Big East or Big East to the A10. It was just so confusing. I don't know. But St. John's, win some games in the Big East tourney first. And then, like I said, again, then we'll set up the meeting. Go to meeting. And then Clemson. And Clemson really just here because someone has to fill this space. It's hard to sort out the rest of the in the hunt teams. And really have got the best profile of really everyone else. Their only flag flyer in the profile, the win over Duke. But 3 sub-100 losses to Auburn, Notre Dame, and Wake Forest. It makes them a long shot. The rest of the strength of schedule, a horrible 95. So obviously they're going to need a deep run in the ACC tourney to warrant a deeper look. But they're here just because, there's one room left in the next 4-in motel. It's the dingy one next to the laundry room. But, someone has to fill the vacancy, dang it. So Clemson, go on in, Someone's got to take that spot. Not many teams left in the hunt. because, again, a lot of teams have fallen by the wayside, but NC State's kind of still in the mix. You know, you beat Pitt, you know, it puts them on shaky ground, but they're sort of in the picture. But again, you lose to Miami, Wake Forest, NC Central. Going to need a deep ACC run. LSU, you know, way too up and down for my liking. Yes, they beat Kentucky, but they're only the good wins against St. Joe's. Again, you also lose to Bubble Killer Rhode Island, Bama, Texas A&M. You're 3-8 in the road games, so LSU's going to make a deep run. Oh, Richmond. Oh, Spiders. And to think that I was on their bandwagons a few weeks ago. I even had Richmond as one of the last 4 in the field. How the mighty bubble has fallen. No big wins outside of conference. A long losing streak. 4-6 in their last 10 games. 5-8 in the road. Red ink all over the Spiders' profile. You know, your best victory comes against UMass, and you have 4 sub-100 RPI losses. That's what hurts you. Richmond's going to have to make plenty of noise in the A-10 tourney and maybe even make the final to really get more consideration. And then you've got the longest of the long shots, and these 4 are really kind of the middlers. And this is the first time I have mentioned this team on the Tracking the Madness video, and because actually I think someone else maybe mentioned in one of my other earlier videos, you know, Georgia. A lot of, people asking me, where Georgia? Where are they? They're 3rd in the SEC. Where are they? Well, that's all well and good. But for a long time, their RPI was below 80. They're 0-6 against the top 50. No top 50 wins. The only thing that really helps Georgia right now in their profile, their RPI is going up. It's up to 73. They're 8-2 in their last 10 games. That's it. That's really all Georgia's got going for them right now. You know, they need some big wins in the SEC tourney first. And maybe winning the whole thing really did not eliminate them completely. But do you remember a couple years ago that happened? Georgia was a surprise winner of the SEC tourney. Nobody expected it. And they made the big dance, and I think gave somebody a scare in the first, second round of the tournament. So keep that in mind. Georgia really now I think is back in the discussion, but gonna need some wins first. And then again, these long shots. Middle Tennessee, you know, as I talked about last year with the campaign, you know, doesn't scream tourney team. I think they've got to really win the whole thing to even, you know, score a spot. Same thing with Louisiana Tech and Western Michigan, again, the MAC tourney. There they are. Now, Western Michigan is the #1 seed in the MAC tourney over Toledo, but I still think Toledo's the favorite to win the MAC. So, again, okay, so, and I put these in. So let me mention this. These teams right now, I think, are pretty much going to the NIT. I mean, guaranteed. They're going to the NIT because, and again, I talked about the 8 #1 seeds. I didn't name them all. Here's your 8 #1 seeds that, and I believe this is an NIT rule, and please someone correct me on this if I'm wrong. But if you're the #1 seed in your conference tournament and you don't win the final and you lose early, I think you get an automatic invite to the NIT. I don't know if that's true or not. Again, if I'm wrong, someone please correct me. But I think that's true. So if that's the case, Belmont, Green Bay, Robert Morris, Iona lost to Manhattan in the MEAC final. Florida Gulf Coast lost to Mercer in the A-Sun. Davidson, who lost to Western Carolina in the SoCon semis. High Point lost to Winthrop in the Big South quarter. And Vermont lost to Albany in the America East semis. 8 #1 seeds that went down. Now, unless the committee rewards one of these and gives them at large first, then they don't go to the NIT. But usually I think it's an automatic invite to the NIT if you are not chosen by the selection committee. So 8 #1 seeds. And also I've mentioned these 3 teams, St. Mary's, in all likelihood, probably headed to the NIT. I think they have a good enough profile for that. They lost to Gonzaga. San Francisco, I wouldn't be surprised if they end up in the NIT as well. They gave BYU a really good game in the West Coast semifinal. They might end up there. And IPFW last night gave North Dakota State a really good game in the Summit final. I wouldn't be surprised if the NIT rewards them for their good season as well. Okay, so that's where we stand right now on the bubble situation. So the only thing left to do now is to share with you guys the bracket. So let's go ahead and share that with you guys. And again, this is fresh and updated. This is all the current automatic bid teams, the teams that I have projected winning the conference, the tournaments, the locks that I have in the field, everything. So this is completely updated as of right now. So again, the regions, number one seed line has changed a little bit. I still think though that, you know, again I think the big debate's going to be that fourth number one seed. Arizona, Florida, Wichita State. I think they're all locked in as ones, regardless of what happens in their conference tourneys. Now maybe Arizona, you know, could fall back, but I can't see that unless a 2 seed like a Syracuse or a Wisconsin really rises up the ladder and makes a deep run. I think they'll be okay. But right now, my 1 seeds, Arizona, the overall 1, Florida, Wichita State, and Villanova now has moved up for me to be the next number 1. Syracuse obviously has dropped to a 2 with their struggles of late. And certainly there's other teams in the discussion, Kansas, Wisconsin, you know, there's certainly Virginia maybe even if they make a run in the ACC. So that's where we stand on those. So let's start with the West region. My top seed, of course, is Arizona, 28-3 out of the Pac-12. Again, has played very well of late. I have them going up against, again, one of the games of the first 4 in Dayton, either Weber State out of the Big Sky, who currently only won the conference by a half game, or either I think it was either a half game or a full game over Montana. So that tournament is going to be wide open. Or Coastal Carolina, who, of course, won the Big South tournament, beats Winthrop in the final of that. So Coastal gets the automatic bid out of the Big South. And usually the Big South goes to Dayton anyway, so really this is not a shocker to see them in that, for me at least, to see them in that position. 8-9, George Washington out of the Atlantic 10, 23-7 record right now. Great story, by the way, about George Washington. And I think this one will be shared a lot when the tournament actually begins. The story of Maurice Creek. He was a player who got a lot of hype at Indiana when he played for IU, but 2 devastating knee injuries really affected his playing time, and a lot of people thought he wouldn't really play again after these knee injuries hurt his career at Indiana. He then transferred to George Washington, and he has really been the star of the Colonial season, has completely turned that team around. So great job, Maurice Creek. Great story staying with it, and nice to see the Colonials get back in the tournament. I think they're going to be a lock. They're going to be okay. I have them taking on the 9 seed Oklahoma State out of the Big 12. Obviously, I think Oklahoma State's a lock for sure. The fact that, again, that Marcus Smart's playing some of his best basketball this time of year is good things for the Oklahoma State Cowboys. 5-12, Ohio State out of the Big 10, 23-8 record right now are my 5 seed. I have them taking on Harvard. They were the first team to clinch an automatic bid this year out of the Ivy League, 26-4. Their 3rd straight appearance, I believe. And last year, do you remember that Harvard pulled a first-round upset as a 14 seed when they upset New Mexico last year in the first round. So again, don't fall asleep on these Ivy League teams. So Ivy League has really been scary over these last couple tournaments, at least in '96. Remember, Princeton beat UCLA in '96 with that last-second shot. The run Cornell made it to Sweet 16 a couple years ago, and then Harvard last year. So these Ivy League teams, they can ball. They're not just spending hours upon hours in the classroom and doing homework. They can ball as well. Then the 4-13, I have San Diego State currently leading the Mountain West, 27-3 overall. I have them taking on Delaware, the Blue Hens, out of the Colonial, 25-9, the Colonial champions. First tournament bid since 1999. So way to go, Blue Hens. Great to see you back in the tournament. And hopefully maybe you can make some noise if you get the right matchup. But they were the favorites all year in the Colonial. They really had run the table for most of the year. And I think it helped them in the end that they didn't get Towson in the final because they had lost to Towson, I believe, earlier in the season. So they got William & Mary in the final, who I think was a little bit more of an easier game for them, although Delaware had to win it. Although that wasn't exactly easy either because they had to win it on a late bucket. So So that hey, the Colonial has always been a tough league, even though some teams moved out of the Colonial to tougher leagues, like VCU moved out of it to go to the A10 and stuff like that. It's still a tough league, so so good job for Delaware. 6-11, UCLA out of the Pac-12, 23-8 on the season are the Bruins. I'm taking on St. Joe's, 21-9, the 11th seed out of the A10. Again, I mentioned St. Joe's. I think for now they're still a fairly safe team in the tournament field, but again, you know, it just depends on where everything else shakes out in terms of the conference tournaments. But for now, I think St. Joe's is still in a very good position. 3-14, Creighton out of the Big East, 24-6. Doug McDermott, I love watching him play. Congratulations to him on passing the 3,000-point mark. That's a great accomplishment for any college player. Rising up the scoring ladder every day, it seems like now. Every game, it seems like he goes up another spot on the career list. So, way to go, Doug McDermott. I can't wait to see what they do in the tournament. I have them opening up against the 14th seed Eastern Kentucky, the Colonels out of the Ohio Valley. I think that's their nickname. Colonels, I think. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Eastern Kentucky's the Colonels. But I gotta see with some of these new teams. I gotta learn all their nicknames too before the tournament starts. They won the Ohio Valley tournament, beating Belmont in the final. 7-10. This would be a good one. Memphis out of the American, 22-8. Josh Pastner's team always plays well, whether it's early in the season or come tournament time. I have them taking on Pittsburgh and Jamie Dixon's squad, 23-8 out of the ACC. And again, I mentioned Pitt. They're right now one of my last few teams that are safe. I think Pitt's in a really good position, being in that strong league, being the schedule they've played. I think they're okay, but as long as they at least don't get a bad loss in the ACC tourney, I think Pitt's going to be all right. And then the 2-15, Michigan, 23-7 out of the Big Ten, your regular season champions, the number 1 seed in the Big Ten tourney. I saw Michigan play in person, and I tell you what, they are the Big Ten champions for a reason. The regular season, they have players that are talented. Nick Stauskas is outstanding. Glenn Robinson III is outstanding. It's a bummer for them that Mitch McGarry got hurt because he's also a very good player. They have playmakers, and they, certainly the job that LeVert has done this season has also been very good for them. So Spike Albrecht, when he comes in, can make an impact sometimes if he has a good shooting day, as we saw in the NCAA tournament last year in the Louisville in the championship game. So I'm very impressed by Michigan, and I think they can go as far as their team can take them. I'll have them opening up against the 15th seed UC Irvine, the Anteaters, out of the Big West, 22-10 on the season. I have them projected winning the tournament. Big West starts theirs, I believe, tomorrow. UC Irvine is obviously going to be the favorite, but UC Santa Barbara is in discussion as well. And this time, we have to talk about this situation. I know last video it was coaches behaving badly. Now we had the situation this week where it's fans behaving badly. I don't know if you guys saw the video. If you haven't, where have you been? Under a rock? I don't know where you've been, but the fan, the idiot at UC Santa Barbara, the Hawaii coach gets a technical foul. He's complaining about a call that the official made, and then all of a sudden, you can see it up in kind of the upper right-hand corner of the stands. Down comes this fan from the stands. Nobody even sees him. Nobody even witnesses him. He's just all of a sudden screaming down the stands. Nobody even gets within a few feet of him onto the floor. And then all of a sudden, again, he gets right in the coach's face and says, F yeah, what are you talking about? F you, man, F off. He's cursing him out, acting like a tough guy, trying to, apparently he's the representative of the maybe he thinks he's the representative of the UCSB fan club or something like that. I don't know. He was wearing beads. He's got beads on. Oh, he's got beads. He's got beads. He's got beads. He's got beads. Look out, he's got beads. He's got the power beads on. He's got beads. He was rocking the beads, and so he made a whole scene. And then, of course, now I have to commend how the Hawaii players responded in the situation. They defended their coach. They protected their coach. They immediately shoved the guy away. and then they quickly pulled him off the floor and promptly arrested him. But even this whole time, he's giving them the "come at me, bro." He's doing all this. Bring it on. Bring it on, guys. And even as he's leaving the arena, he's like, "Bring it on, yeah." No, dude, no. No, we don't want them to bring it on. No, we don't want that, okay? That would have been stupid. It would have been stupid for you. It would have been stupid for the program. It would have been stupid for Hawaii. It would have been stupid for the game. It would have been stupid for the Big West. It would have been stupid even for the NCAA, man. Do you realize that's 6 levels of stupidity? There's your new documentary. 1 UCSB fan for being on the floor like an idiot.
What do you have to prove? What do you have to prove going onto the floor? I mean, really? I mean, and at the time of this happened, UCSB was beating Hawaii by 14. By 14! Okay, we get it. We know you're good in the Big West. You're beating Hawaii, a team that you're expected to beat, by 14. What do you have to prove? What do you have to say to Hawaii's coach? What do you have to say to him? Have you? Apparently that's what you have to go all CeeLo Green on him. F you, I didn't get it. 100% grade A idiot on 6 levels of stupidity. I can only imagine tonight on 6 levels of stupidity. The UCSB fan. What was he thinking? Why was he wearing those beads? And what did he have to prove to his team when his team was up by 14 on a sub-100 team? Hopefully those questions will be answered. Maybe they won't. Maybe we'll have to take a phone call from him in his jail cell. Tonight on 6 levels of stupidity and more at 11. I mean, what do you have to prove, guy? For that reason alone, I hope that UCSB doesn't make it. I want UC Irvine to win now because of idiots like you. Go Eaters. I don't know what the hand sign is, but I think it goes like this or like this. There you go. Rip 'em Eaters. There you go, right there. The Anteater. There you go. Rip 'em Eaters. Go Irvine. All right, East Region in the semifinals we played in New York. Top seed Villanova out of the Big East, 28-3. Don't you guys just love my rants, by the way? I find a way to rant about something. I find a way. Whether it's St. John's or coaches behaving badly or idiot fans, I find a way to rant. Villanova, 28-3 out of the Big East, my top seed right now in the East. I have them taking on Stony Brook, who I have projected to win the America East tournament. Actually, the final. They're playing Albany in the final. Albany, of course, the team that knocked out Vermont, the top seed. Seawolves, 23-9 out of the America East. Did you know I knew that? Seawolves, the Stony Brook nickname? I knew that. And so you're probably asking me, how did you know that? Baseball. Their baseball team, I think, made it the College World Series last year. So I have them winning the America East final over Albany. Obviously, if Albany wins that, I think they'll be in the same vein. I think they'll be a 16 seed. So kind of the same boat there. 8-9. This would be an entertaining, juicy one. Baylor out of the Big 12, 21-10, the 8 seed, who I think also is a lot to get in. Along with the fellow lock, Arizona State, 21-10 out of the Pac-12. Would be a very entertaining 8-9 game in my opinion. The 5-12, North Carolina, my 5 seed, 23-8 out of the ACC. Again, the late season surge has been awesome for the Tar Heels. I have them taking on one of the first 4 winners. 2 of my last 4 teams in the field, either Minnesota or Xavier would play in the first 4 in Dayton. And then the 4-13, your defending national champions, Louisville Cardinals out of the American, 26-5. I have them taking on Manhattan, the Jaspers. See, I know some of these. 25-7, the champions of the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference. Ha!
the MAC, not to be confused with the MAC of the Mid-American. 25-7. They beat. I'm trying to remember who they beat in the final. Did they beat Iona in the final? Yes. No. No. Yes, they did. It was Iona because Canisius and Quinnipiac lost earlier. I have to remember how I follow these tournaments. But Manhattan beat the regular season champs in Iona, and now they are the ones in the tournament. Iona headed to the NIT. I just said that. What? My mind is still asleep. Wake up, brain! I know you got woken up at 6 a.m. by the winter storm, but you got to wake up now. Drink more caffeine. I don't know. 6-11. VCU 24-7 out of the A10. Of course, Shaka Smart, one of my favorite coaches, does a great job with the Rams. Again, that havoc defense, tough to play against. I have them going up against Tennessee out of the SEC, 20-11. I think the Vols are in a really good position. I think they'll be safely in the field as well. 3-14, Iowa State out of the Big 12, 23-7, the Cyclones. I have them taking on Mercer, your champs of the Atlantic Sun, 26-8, the Bears, beating Florida Gulf Coast. So no Dunk City this year, unfortunately. But unless you watch the NITs, where they're probably headed to the NIT. So, so there you go. That gives you a reason to watch the NIT. Florida Gulf Coast. And Robert Morris. And Robert Morris probably thought to themselves, hey, we had so much fun beating Kentucky last year in the NIT. We want to go back again. Maybe not, but it was a joke. I put it on Twitter. It was a joke. Robert Morris joke, 7-10, New Mexico out of the Mountain West, 24-6, the Lobos. I have them taking on Stanford, 19-11 out of the Pac-12. Stanford, again, one of those teams kind of on the 10-11 cut line, in my opinion, but I think they're going to be okay. I think they have too many top 50 wins. I can't see Stanford missing the field. And then the 2-15, Syracuse, 27-4 out of the ACC. I have them taking on my projected MEAC champions. That's North Carolina Central, the Eagles, 25-5. Again, they've been dominating the league all year, although we have seen number one teams get upset. So for now, it's just a projection, but I think, with the MEAC as weak as it is, I think that the Eagles will probably come out of that. But again, never know. South region, top seed, Florida Gators, 29-2 SEC. Billy Donovan's team looking as stronger as ever. Scotty Wilbekin, so much talent on that roster as well. I have them taking on Wofford, champs of the Southern League. Southern League. How about Southern Conference there, Chris? SoCon. 20-12, the Terriers beating Western Carolina in the final there, and Davidson headed, of course, to the NIT. 8-9, this would be an entertaining one as well, and I think it'd be a challenge for Florida in the third round if they win that game. Oregon out of the Pac-12, 22-8. You want to talk about a comeback. Look no further than the Oregon Ducks. I mean, you start the season 12-0, 13-0, then you go 3-8 in the Pac-12 for a long time, and people were talking NIT for you, or bubble team at the least, and then you rattle off the rest of the wins in the regular season, and now you're a lock. I mean, great job by the Oregon Ducks. I have them as the 8th seed taking on Kansas State, the 9th seed, 20-11 out of the Big 12. Kansas State, again, a lot of quality wins this season. I can't see that the Wildcats would miss the field. The 5-12, Oklahoma out of the Big 12 is my 5 seed, 23-8. I have them taking on Southern Miss, my projected winner of Conference USA, the Golden Eagles at 26-5. Conference USA is going to be a fun tournament to watch. It is wide open. 4 teams tied for first place in CUSA. The Golden Eagles of Southern Miss, Middle Tennessee, Louisiana Tech, and Tulsa. Yes, Tulsa, who technically I think is even maybe, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, is the number 1 seed because they won like the tiebreaker or something. I don't know for sure, but Tulsa in the discussion. Who would have thunk? But to me, Southern Miss, I think is the most well-rounded team in Conference USA. I think, and I mentioned on here, I think CUSA is only going to be a one-bid league. I can't see the profiles of Southern Miss or a Middle Tennessee or a La Tech have enough merit to them to get in. So I think whoever the 2 out of the 3 that don't win it are probably going to go to the NIT. So I think Southern Miss to me is in the best position. That's why I have them projected winning right now. But again, anything can change. And then 4-13, Michigan State out of the Big Ten, 23-8. Again, Tom Izzo in March always tends to be strong. I have them taking on Stephen F. Austin, 29-2 out of the Southland. To me, it would be a shock if the Lumberjacks went out early in that tournament. They ran the table in conference play this season, 18-0. That would definitely be a big shocker if that were to happen. 6-11, I have Connecticut as a 6 seed, 24-7. The Huskies out of the American. I have them taking on the winner of the other first 4 game in Dayton, featuring Dayton. Who else? Dayton. Dayton playing in Dayton. How fun would that be? Dayton getting to play on their home floor. Taking on is that even legal? Is that allowed? Again, I didn't read anywhere in the NCAA rules that would state that. So again, correct me if I'm wrong on some of this, but is Dayton allowed to play in the first 4 in Dayton if they make the field? I don't know for sure. So, but if they are, I'd have them playing Nebraska in a first 4 game to see who would get to play Connecticut. 3-14, Duke out of the ACC, 24-7 on the season. Always good, always talented. Jabari Parker, I got to admit, even though I'm not fond of Duke, Jabari Parker is very fun to watch. I have them taking on Georgia State out of the Sun Belt, 24-7. The Panthers, the projected favorites to win that conference. A couple teams could challenge them, like a Western Kentucky, for example. But I think the Panthers are the favorite there. 7-10, 2 teams that have kind of fallen from the ranks lately that would kind of be stumbling into the tourney. Kentucky out of the SEC, 22-9 on the season, taking on Colorado, 21-10 out of the Pac-12. And I had somebody ask, and I think it was Robert Vandermeer, who I talked with on here as well. He's commented a lot, leaving his projections and everything. But he talked about Colorado, and he talked about how Colorado stumbles down the stretch and loses some games in the conference
tourney. Where would that put them? For me, I think Colorado, because they're on the 10 line, obviously they're safe. They're maybe like one of the last 4 buys or last 6 on that above the cut line. But certainly it's very tenuous. If Colorado were to make an early exit in the Pac-12 tourney, like say losing tonight's game to I gotta remember who they play now. I know Colorado plays tonight, so give me a minute here. If Colorado were to lose to USC tonight, I mean that might put them in a very very tenuous position, because USC they've been a bubble killer, but that puts them in a very tenuous spot. So certainly I think Colorado would sweat a little bit more, but I think for now though they're still in a decent position. The committee is going to evaluate how this team played without Spencer Dinwiddie, and I think and the record has been okay without him, but not great. So for now, again, I still think Colorado's on the right side of things, but barely. They can't afford any bad losses at this point. Great team to talk about. Great team to dissect with Colorado. And then the 2-15, I have Kansas out of the Big 12, 23-8. A lot of now uncertainty surrounding the Kansas Jayhawks, because if you guys have heard the news, Joel Embiid, their big man in the middle, has now been ruled out for the Big 12 tourney, and maybe even the first couple rounds of the NCAA tournament, because of a back injury. Actually, they found a stress fracture in his back, from what I was told. So a lot of uncertainty with Kansas right now, and the committee has said that they are going to evaluate that injury to see where they're going to seed the Jayhawks. So just keep that in mind. Kansas might even fall to the 3 line, which to me wouldn't be surprising as a result of Embiid's injury. But I have them for now as a 2, taking on Milwaukee, the Panthers out of the Horizon League, your champions there at 21-13. In the Midwest region, obviously your top seed. Gee, I wonder who it could be. Oh, that's right, the Shockers. Wichita State, 34-0. First team to go into the tournament undefeated. Winners of the Missouri Valley since, I believe, UNLV in 91, 92. I have them taking on, again, one of the winners of the first 4 in Dayton. Either Alabama State, I projected to win the SWAC at 18-11, or Mount St. Mary's. As I said, they're guaranteed to go to Dayton with that 16-16 record, winning the Northeast as a prize winner of the Northeast. The Mount was headed to Dayton, Ohio. 8-9, Gonzaga, champions of the West Coast Conference, 28-6. I have them taking on Iowa out of the Big Ten, 20-11. Now, Fran McCaffrey's team has struggled of late down the stretch, but again, the fact that Iowa plays in a really good conference in the Big Ten and they have enough quality wins, I still think Iowa's in a really good position. Now, granted,
if they do lose to Northwestern in the first round of the Big Ten tourney, one of two things will happen. They'll either drop to the 10-11 line, or, although I really can't see that happening, I think Iowa's locked in for sure. So at worst, they'll fall to the 10-11.
Or they'll be one of the last 4 teams in the field. So, or on that 11 line. So, last 4 buys maybe. So that's where I see Iowa right now. 5-12, St. Louis out of the A-10, 26-5. The Billikens, the regular season champs there. I have them taking on Toledo. The Rockets are my projected winner in the MAC, 26-5. They have been for weeks. I can't really see anybody challenging them. And here's a game where St. Louis could be challenged because Toledo's a very offensive-minded team. They like scoring a lot of points. The MAC is a very point-driven league for some of your top-heavy teams. The lower-ranked teams in the MAC don't tend to score a whole lot of points. But Toledo does, so that could be a troubling game for the Billikens. Remember Oregon last year. And then 4-13, Cincinnati, again out of the American, 26-5. I have them in the same matchup playing North Dakota State out of the Summit League, 25-6. The Bison winning the Summit League last night. And again, Cincinnati and the Bearcats, Mick Kernan looking strong, and that led to my rant last time with the coaches behaving badly, which I still watch because it's funny. 6-11, same matchup that I had. Texas out of the Big 12, 22-9, taking on BYU, 23-11 out of the West Coast. I think BYU, again, I've said on here, I've had them as a lock for weeks. I think they're safe. I think, yes, they do have a lot of bad loss on the profile, but I think, again, the wins outweigh those losses. The fact they made the West Coast Conference Final, I think, outweighs those losses, so I think the Cougars are in a really good position. 3-14, Virginia out of the ACC, 25-6 on the season, regular season champs of the ACC. I have them taking on Boston University, who I project to win the Patriot Final today. They'll be 25-9 if they win out of the Patriot League. They're playing American, who's been the number 2 in the Patriot all years, but I think BU has looked very strong of late, so I think they'll get the win. 7-10, UMass out of the Atlantic 10, 23-7, taking on SMU, 23-8 out of the American. Again, the job that Larry Brown has done, outstanding with the Mustangs. And then the 2-15, Wisconsin, 25-6 out of the Big Ten. Bo Ryan's squad always doing well of late, taking on Utah Valley. My projected winner from the WAC, the Wolverines, 19-10 on the season. But again, New Mexico State could certainly be in the discussion for the WAC as well. I think it's going to be one of those two that ends up winning the WAC tournament. They always seem to play. They played very well in their last meeting, so it's going to be one of those two teams. All right, guys, that is it, and that is it for now up until selection weekend. The final bracket projection will come probably late Saturday night. I know there's a lot of conference title games going on Saturday, but I think by then we'll hopefully have a really good idea where the bubble falls, really where the top teams tend to stack up. So I think by that time we'll really get a good indication of where everything sets up. And again, some of the conference tournaments will still be projected based on the results of the 16th games. But again, like I said, by that time usually I have a really good idea of who's going to be in and who's not. So that's going to be my final bracket projection this Saturday, probably late in the day, to make sure some of the games get played out first. So again, guys, I appreciate all the views, sharing the videos, sharing your bubble situations, your teams to discuss. That's what makes March fun. That's what makes this discussion fun, and till we lead up to the tournament. Also, once the bracket is released, as I've done every year, I do a bracket breakdown. I look at all the regions, the matchups, who could go on a deep run, help you guys make your bracket projections and picks. I might even do this year filling mine out live. I've thought about doing that in the past. I've never done it. At least my gut feeling bracket. I play 7 different brackets on Tournament Challenge because it's fun like that. But I always fill out my gut feeling bracket first, so I might do that live, at least in a video with you guys. So that way you can see what I'm looking at in terms of making the picks. So I'm thinking of doing that during the bracket breakdown show. So I'll do that following Selection Sunday, and then
My plan then is to again to return to Jaguars quarterback quest. I hope to resume that once the all the bracket stuff is done and we actually can get the tournament underway, and we break down the bracket. Then on Thursday, March 20th is the tentative date. I plan to resume the Jaguars quarterback quest series then with 4 more quarterbacks for you. So, and I don't know if you heard the news yesterday regarding this. The Jags did re-sign Chad Henne, but they sent Blaine Gabbert to San Francisco. They got rid of Blaine God-awful Gabbert. They got rid of him. So maybe that's a sign. Maybe that's a sign. We don't know, but maybe that's a sign that they're paying attention. So yeah, so that's the plan going forward. Again, thank you guys again for all the support, everything you guys do. You're making this channel grow, and I can't thank you guys enough for that. And again, I'm trying to think of more ideas to things to do. Once this series ends for the year, once the Jags quarterback quest ends, I'm trying to get more ideas in my head. So if you let me know what you want to see potentially, or I'm trying to keep thinking. So if anything comes to my mind, you'll be the first to know. So thank you guys again. See you on Saturday for the final bracket projection of Tracking the Madness, and then the week following, bracket breakdown and the resumption of Jaguars quarterback quest. Thanks, guys, and God bless.